Bubbly Steve is available for pre-order at shopclownfish.com. That's shopclownfish.com. You've got less than a month to pre-order this 15-inch plushie. Check them out. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, and we're going to talk about how France gave teenagers $350 for culture, and they're buying manga. They're buying manga with it. I think this is hilarious. They're not buying comic books. The New York Times said, hey, they're buying comic books, and technically manga are comic books, but when we talk about comic books, we're usually talking about Western comics. That's not what they're buying. When teenagers are given free money to buy stuff, they buy manga. So we're going to talk about that. Have to give a hat tip to Sarah on derez.com for posting this article. I'd heard about it. I wasn't 100% sure on what was going on, but she posted a link to the original New York Times article. So thank you for that, Sarah. Check out Derez. That is actually our website. It's one of the websites we run. It is an unbiased pop culture news website. We're trying to roll the clock back a little bit and I guess be more of a comic book resources and newsarama before they went batshit crazy. I don't know. So we're going to talk about all of this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 225,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. Geeky is sitting this video out. She's got stuff to do today, so you're stuck with me. Here we go. I'll try to make it entertaining, right? So I want to point this out first. Manga sales are through the roof, all over the place. Manga is quickly becoming, well, I think it always has been, the most popular kind of comic book on the planet. And I think it has been for quite some time, but it's becoming very, very obvious that, this is what all the kids are reading. They're not reading I Am Not Starfire. They're not buying Emilia Clarke's menstruation-powered comic book. They're not buying the stuff from Marvel and DC these days. They're buying manga. Everybody's buying manga. In fact, you go to ICV2 and you look at the sales charts, and it's usually all manga and graphic novels, except for like Dogman and Raina Telgemeier and that kind of stuff, but mostly manga. Now, I love it how the comic book industry, the North American comic book industry, likes to take credit for manga when they literally had nothing to do with it. So they're going to absolutely try to take credit for this too and say that France is buying comics. Oh my God, I can't wait for them to buy all those Vault and Black Mask comics. Yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening. They're buying manga. So this is coming from the New York Times. Young people can buy books, tickets, and classes via a government smartphone app. But rather than discover highbrow arts, many are choosing mass media they already love. The French government launched a smartphone app that gave 300 euros to every 18-year-old in the country for cultural purchases like books and music. And they're not buying high culture, they're buying manga. France's teenagers flock to buy manga. It's a really good initiative, said Juliette Sega, who lives in a small town in southeastern France and has used $47 to buy Japanese comic books and the Maze Runner dystopian novel. I'm a steady consumer of novels and manga, and it helps pay for them. As of this month, books represented over 75% of all purchases made through the app since it was introduced in May, and roughly 2/3 of those books were manga, according to the organization that runs the app called Culture Pass. The French news media has written of a manga rush fueled by Manga Pass, observations that came via a slightly distorted lens since the app arrived just as theaters, cinemas, and music festivals emerging from pandemic-related restrictions had less to offer, and manga were already wildly popular in France. Manga is wildly popular everywhere. Everywhere. It is destroying Western comics. I mean, not literally, but it's clearly these are the comics of choice for the next generation. They're not going to be reading Superman and Batman. They're sure as hell not going to be reading I Am Not Starfire, but they're going to buy this. The focus on comic books reveals a subtle tension at the heart of the Culture Pass's design between the almost total freedom it affords to young users, including to buy the mass media they already love, and its architect's aim of guiding users toward lesser-known and more highbrow arts. Every French 18-year-old can activate the pass and spend about $350 for up to 2 years on the app, which is over 8,000 businesses and institutions have it listed. Teenagers can buy physical goods from bookstores, record shops, and art supply or instrument stores. They can purchase tickets to movie showings, plays, concerts, or museum exhibits, and they can sign up for dance, painting, or drawing class, but they're buying, 75% of them are buying manga. This is crazy. Cultural Ministry official who oversees the project, Noel Corbin, said the pass gave France's newly minted adults a way of looking up nearby cultural offerings. The app has a geolocation feature and encourages them to indulge in their cultural passions, but they're buying manga. They're buying from record shops. They're buying vinyl and manga. Those include recommendation lists curated by Culture Pass staff. They don't care. They're buying manga. Critics argue that letting 825,000 teenagers loose with free cash and expecting them to be nudged away from the nearest multiplex and into an art house movie theater is a naive waste of taxpayer money. Probably, but it just shows what they gravitate toward, doesn't it? It shows what they prefer. So the app comes with built-in restrictions. Users can spend only 100 euros on offerings like ebooks and online media subscriptions and on music or movie streaming services, which are also limited to French companies. And while the Culture Pass can be spent on video games, the game's publisher must be French. And the game must not feature violence. Conditions so restrictive, most popular titles are unavailable. This is great. Yeah, they're trying to get them to go to jazz concerts and go to art museums, and they're buying vinyl and they're buying manga. That is really interesting. So, yeah, am I surprised? No. Look, kids like comics. They do. They just don't like Western comics because Western comics don't like them. Western comics has, narrowed its audience down to probably less than 1% of the potential comic book buying audience because they're not for everybody anymore. They used to be. They claim that they're more diverse and inclusive, but I mean, you have to find people, one, that want to buy comics, two, want to pay that much for comics. Let's face it, just overall, manga is a better deal. $10 for like 200 pages of material. Who cares if it's black and white? Who cares? It's 200 pages versus, paying $5 or $6 for 20 pages of full color, half-assed art in a lot of cases, And, comics has just left most of its audience behind. Most Western comics creators aren't writing for their audience. They're writing for themselves and their friends. They're writing to get fist bumps from their peers. Very small circle of people in Brooklyn and Portland in a lot of cases. LA, they're not writing for general audiences. They're not making comics for grandma. In Japan, they have comics for grandma. They have comics for your sister, for your mom, for your dad. They're comics for everyone. And for all this talk of comics for everyone, that is not what we're seeing in the West. We're seeing comics for hipsters. Comics for hipsters. That's basically it. And hipsters who read comics, which are not very many. I mean, let's be honest. They're going to spend their money on vinyl or something. They're not going to be spending their money on comics. So, very interesting to see. And I'm sure that the North American comic book industry is somehow going to take credit for France giving away money so teenagers in France can go buy Japanese comic books. Somehow, America will find a way to make it about themselves. Guaranteed. If they haven't done so already and I've just missed that story. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.